All right, so hey, trial and error. Hopefully this works. Bobby, Burton, on Texas here. Destin Beach spring meetings. Thank you for being our guinea pig here, Bobby.
I'm happy to be a guinea pig for you, Mike. Anything. How you doing today?
Oh man, I'm sweating my ass off. I'm regretting the multiple bourbons I had last night. I went to the gym right before this. I thought that would help me. It's hurting really bad right now.
It did cleanse the pores.
Well, it did, but then it's just creating new pores, new issues. So I'm sweating all over here. But besides that, man, can't beat this view, can we?
No, we can't beat the view, and that's called just getting old. By the way, maybe Greg Sankey's getting a little old this week. He may have aged a year or so during these spring meetings. I think right now.
What are you getting out of this spring meetings? Because coming in here, there was a lot of discussion that this was going to be some of the most impactful spring meetings maybe ever. Are you sensing that down here?
I think that is overdone, based on what I've gathered from talking to not only folks at Texas, but also to listening to Greg Sankey and some other athletic directors and coaches. I think that it had the opportunity to be, but given that the House settlement hasn't, as we're taping this, hasn't come down yet, they don't have a clear go forward on that. And until they do, I think it's setting aside some major issues. I mean, they're definitely talking about college football playoff changes. They're talking about 8 or 9 SEC game schedules. They're talking about, what would a play-in game look like if there were 4 AQs from the SEC. But I don't think they're getting into the brass tacks of that. Now, the coaches, I think, are a little different. The coaches are trying to narrow in on the portal window, what that'll look like. But beyond, I think that there's so much up for grabs, so much real estate. It's hard to fathom how they're going to come out with all of this until the House settlement's done, and then I think there's some dominoes that maybe will fall.
Isn't that interesting, though, that the mighty SEC, who people assume can do whatever the hell they want, even they are kind of stuck in this position where they have to wait for all this other stuff before they can make a move. I mean, that kind of states perfectly where we're at right now with college football.
It does a little bit, but when you talk about it, the House settlement's $1 billion deal, right? I mean, so, a lot of people bend at the knee of $1 billion. And so I think that there's that, but also I would say and challenge this a little bit. Greg Sankey has control of what the SEC needs to be doing. A lot of people presumed incorrectly that it was going to be a jam down by the SEC and Big Ten on this 4 automatic qualifiers for the SEC and Big Ten, and 2 and 2 for the Big 12 and ACC. And Sankey even came out and I wouldn't say he chastised Phillips and Yormark of the ACC and Big 12, but what he did do is he kind of just said, look, I know, don't lecture me about the good of the game. I felt like that was directed at them for good reason. I mean, they're out there trying to put out joint press releases and trying to talk about this when, frankly, they, both the ACC and Big 12 said, yes, you can have control of the college football playoff beginning in 2026. So now they're going back on their word and trying to play, the media game. Yeah, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I get the feeling that, this is my second SEC spring meetings because Texas just came to the meeting. I came to the conference. I'm really impressed with Greg Sankey overall. His demeanor, I think he's calculated. I think he's measured. Is he perfect? No, but I don't think he expects himself to be perfect. And so I don't think they're pushing the SEC around. But $1 billion is $1 billion.
Well, I got to ask you this, though, because out of the spring meetings, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, at least from Sarkisian and a Texas angle, I think the biggest talking point was, my word, this $40 million roster, that's bullshit. Get that. So what was your thoughts on Sarkisian? What was you would know better than I. What did he say? I wish I had another $15 million to build this roster.
It was frustrating on that was it was a little bit of irresponsible reporting, right? It was one anonymous source said that's what our roster was. I wish I had 40 million on our roster. We'd probably be a little bit better team than we are. But you know, the idea to think that a lot of other schools aren't spending money to get players. I mean, it's the state of college football right now. It is what it is. And I wish I had about another 15 million or so, though. I might have a little better roster, but so.
Yeah, and Chris Del Conte, in his conversation on Wednesday, we talked a little bit about that with a group of reporters from Texas. He said the $40 million figure was off, maybe some double counting in there about how they got to it. Yeah. I did not think they had gotten to 40 million, but I do believe they're in the 30s. So I think there's a little middle ground there maybe between the two. But look, Texas is being aggressive in roster management. They are one of the best in the country, if not the best in it right now. I think that other teams in the SEC would tell you that Steve Sarkisian has got it kind of rolling right now. And it's not just because of NIL. I'll give you a stat, Mike. So we cover recruiting it on Texas football, right? Well, Texas has 54 or 55 official visitors lined up for the month of June, okay? You know the number one team they're competing against right now for recruiting? You'd think it's always A&M. I mean, I've been covering recruiting at Texas for 30 years. It's always been A&M or Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe LSU slips in there. You know the number one team they're competing against? 15 players that Texas recruiting have visits lined up to Georgia. That'll tell you it's just they're playing in a different sandbox right now than what they typically have, and I think some teams in the SEC recognize.
Yeah, one of our listeners said it's not 40, it's 39.99.
Yeah, I don't think it's that high.
Okay.
I do think it's in the 30s, and then it gets into how do you count Arch Manning's deal with Red Bull, right, or Viore or
Uber.
Yeah, any. I mean, that's above and beyond, I think, and I don't know. But football at Texas is very healthy. The fan base is very motivated right now. The donor base is motivated. 2 consecutive semifinals. A really good year in the first year in the SEC. I think kick-started it. The all-sports programs around Texas, they're probably going to win the Directors' Cup. So there's a lot of really positive momentum. Steve Sarkisian deserves a big hat tip for that for Texas fans. Chris Del Conte deserves a hat tip for that. We'll see where it all goes, but it's a pretty good time right now to be a Longhorn fan.
One thing we've talked a lot about is we still think Georgia is not only the best program in the SEC, I think it's the best program in the country, and it's earned that. But I think that number 2 spot in the Southeastern Conference is up for grabs. And if it's not Alabama, which has been the last 2 decades, it probably is Texas. What do you think Texas has to do to get there, or do you think Texas is already there?
I think Texas last year was the number 2 program in the conference, clearly behind Georgia. So I don't think it's that big. I don't think the step between Texas and Georgia is that big right now. Not based on, I mean, Texas had the number 1 recruiting class. Yeah. They added 11 guys through the portal, didn't really lose anybody they wanted to keep. I think Texas has got a really, really talented roster. They're young, they're inexperienced this year a little bit at certain positions, but they're not young. They've got a couple of their guys that are going to start are third-year guys that just have been playing behind NFL draft picks, frankly. Mm-hmm. Texas had 12 of those this year. So I feel like they're fine there. I think that the teams right now, I still look at Alabama, if they can get quarterback right. I think Florida, with the quarterback, if DJ Lagway's healthy, I think they can get into that discussion, because I do think that even though they haven't always played like this under Billy Napier, the talent level at Florida is legit. Beyond that, I mean, we'll see. I mean, whether or not Tennessee now, their situation at quarterback, Ole Miss going through a transition period a little bit. LSU and Brian Kelly, I mean, is he going to make it, or is he going to, go and make the play? I mean, there's a lot of teams, and I think what we just went through and talked about, Mike, the strength of the SEC is not necessarily at the very top. And I say this with all due respect to Georgia or to Texas or any of those teams. It's the fact that 4 through 10 compare that to, I don't know, Minnesota or Indiana. I mean, it's just that's the difference with the SEC and the Big 12. I mean, Texas is just in the Big 12. I can tell you there is a major difference really from 3 or 4 to 10. After Penn State, Ohio State, and most likely Michigan, there's something different going on in the Big 10. You start talking about maybe it goes 5 or 6 deep if Iowa's good on defense one year. Mm-hmm. It's just different in the SEC, and that's the real strength of it. You can have guys that Auburn can go in and out of that if they have a Cam Newton or big time player.
I'd like to get your reaction because I was sitting with you live at the SEC spring meetings when you saw Mike Elko. We competed with Texas.
we went toe to toe.
Excuse me, we went toe to toe, even though we got our ass whooped at home. What was your reaction when you first saw that?
I didn't see it. I heard it live, and he made it like a throwaway comment. It was like, well, it was the typical A&M historically is you call them Texas 8-4.
Right.
Okay. And for a reason, they always lose 4 games. So typically they went up, I think they were 8-1, and then they went on a late season swoon. And the question was asked from the audience, Mike Elko, what do you think about this late season swoon y'all had? Oh, well, we had a couple night road games that we weren't really prepared for, especially South Carolina, which I kind of agree with the South Carolina thing because until Le'Veon Moss got hurt, I thought A&M was very competitive in that game. But then they just got overwhelmed. Right. And then they went to Auburn and lost in whatever overtime that was. And then they came home to Texas and he goes, oh, and then we went toe-to-toe with the national semifinalist. And I chuckled to myself because it was such a throwaway line. It was something that it's revisionist history is what it is. Texas beat the you-know-what out of them. Front and back, 460 yards to 280. If Quinn Ewers doesn't throw it to the other team or fumble it, it's probably could be 31-0. Theoretically. So, but the other thing I thought of is that then some people started DMing me, and I was, he also said they annihilated us the day of the game, or that right after the game. His quote was, "They annihilated us physically." From they annihilated us physically to we went toe to toe. All in an off season. So that's okay. I think, he's a coach trying to get his team to believe in themselves, I think.
Yeah.
I don't fault him for it. I just think it's BS. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other major takeaways from you, Bobby? What all the things you're covering here at the spring meetings?
I'm really interested in how this all plays out from a college football playoff perspective. I think that the SEC would be just fine going to 11, or 5 automatic qualifiers and 11 at large. Those 16 teams this year, what would the SEC have had? 6 of the 16 potentially? Mm-hmm. That's better than the 4 automatic qualifiers.
And quite honestly, it was a down year for the SEC.
Yes. Well, at the very top, maybe. Yeah. I would say this, though. The thing that's grabbing me a little bit that SEC coaches and administrators and even Sankey are trying to talk about is in the NCAA basketball tournament, they really talk heavily about strength of schedule. In the NCAA baseball, they use strength of schedule as one of the primary factors. Well, men's basketball, the SEC got 14 of 16 teams in the NCAA tournament. In men's in baseball, the SEC got 13 of 16 teams in. Well, they don't use strength of schedule enough, in Greg Sankey's opinion, and most of the SEC coaches, enough as it relates to college football playoff selection. They all think it becomes too subjective at the committee level. And so somebody that is 11-1 but didn't play anybody or has one good win leapfrogs a team that's 9-3 and went through a gauntlet of a conference like the SEC. And I don't think Greg Sankey's willing to leave that to chance. I don't think he wants to. And so that's the push and pull that's going on here in Destin.
Yeah, so I mean, so how do they correct that? Because I've heard, committee. We had Scott Strickland come out here and say we don't need a committee, even though he's been on the committee. Sankey said, BCS has been good and bad. So, I guess that is the question. Where should they go?
I am open to any number of solutions myself, so I'm not. Obviously, I have no dog in this hunt.
Right.
I'm one of those guys. I don't believe that the non-power four should get an automatic bid. Maybe there should be 17 and there's a play-in game with that non-power four. I mean, I really believe that. I mean, why are they automatically skipping the line?
Right.
Because it's their one chance to. I don't think that's right. So even the 4-2-2-1 doesn't make sense to me. 5-11 sounds like it's going to be where they land, and I think the SEC will get 5 to 6 teams in a year, and they'll all, the Big 12 will get 2, and the ACC may get 3 on an odd year, and the Big 10 will get 4. Because I don't think the Big 10's not going to get 5. They're not good enough. Right. They're not good. They're not deep enough to get 5.
Right, and I believe I saw Chris Del Conte today discussed multiple rounds of home games in the playoff.
He loves that idea.
Why is that, you think?
Well, don't forget, Texas is the only SEC team that had a home playoff game.
Right.
Okay, so they played Clemson at home, and I was there, and it was tremendous. Like, you're a college football fan. I know you. 100,000 people at home, playoff atmosphere in college football. It's a first in the state of Texas, right? And it was awesome. I mean, it literally was. I mean, the place was rocking. And I think that for that to happen at Alabama, for that to happen at a Florida or Auburn or a Georgia, that stuff will rock, man. That plays. And I think the other thing, and I also dealt with this as well, and Del Conte's he's very fan forward as it relates to, I mean, any Texas fan will tell you that their game day experience has improved 2 or 3-fold since he's taken control of the athletic department. And he's very fan forward, and I agree with him on this. Texas did this. They went to Atlanta for the SEC championship from Austin. Then they came home and played Clemson. Then they went back to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl. Then they went to Dallas, all in a month around the holidays. It's a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So if you could have the first 2 games of a 16-team game tournament at home, if you're the higher ranked seed, or maybe won the first one and then on the road the next one, I think it assuages some of that fear of having to go all over the country. At least if you're a top 8 seed, maybe you get 1 home game. If you're a top 4, maybe you get 2, and then the semifinals go to the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl or Cotton Bowl or Rose Bowl or wherever.
All right, last question for you, Bobby. Really appreciate your time. Who is it? You said the team is not necessarily young, but inexperienced.
Yes.
Who's a player or two on Texas roster that I'm sure maybe the diehard Longhorn fans are familiar, but maybe another SEC fan base, a name they don't know today, by the end of the season they're going to know that's a hell of a player right there.
Trevor Gooseby at left tackle. So Texas lost both starting tackles. Kelvin Banks was a first rounder, 3-year starter.
Yeah.
Trevor Gooseby came in and played left tackle during the A&M game when Kelvin Banks went out in the first quarter. Played 3 great quarters. A&M didn't get to the quarterback. He played great. Well, next game against Clemson, the other starting tackle, the right tackle, Cam Williams, got hurt early, I think at halftime, right before halftime. Trevor Gooseby goes in at right tackle, plays great. I think he's got a chance to be a really, really good football player. Left tackle, that's a big piece of Arch Manning's future. I won't mention Arch Manning because he's not young, but he's inexperienced, right? He's got 3 games playing. Obviously, he would be one. They're really talented. I tell you one that is maybe not on the radar because Anthony Hill is an all-conference level linebacker. But Steve Sarkisian yesterday said that Leonga Lafau, guy from Honolulu, had a tremendous spring. And now he had 60-plus tackles last year, kind of in a quasi-reserve role. I would put him up there, as well as maybe a transfer like Brad Spence at linebacker, and then Ryan Wingo, the receiver. He's got NFL first-round qualities. Will he actually do it? It's yet to be determined.
Missouri fans are still upset over that one.
Sorry about that, Eli Drinkwitz. I mean, what do you want us to say?
Hey, before you go, Bobby, can you tell my audience how to follow you, how to find On Texas Football?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on YouTube, and we also have a podcast companion called On Texas Football. It's myself, Jerry Hamilton's a big-time recruiting guy, Rod Babers, former player at the University of Texas, is there, C.J. Vogel, Jeff Howe, Blake Monroe, Bob Shipley. We've got a lot of Longhorn guys that get together and come put together On Texas.
Nice. Thank you so much, Bobby. And can you give me a horns up for the thumbnail?
Horns up. How about a hook 'em? Give me a break. Hook 'em.
Wait. I said that wrong? I just know horns down. All right, I'll cut it right there.